would you like to be the only sheep and have to meet 100 guys that are after you with the scissors? Well, that's what happens to a poor dumb sheep that has to get into the way. So again, what's going on, according to Wallenwein, is that there is an orchestrated effort, and I believe he's absolutely exact, that the coordinated effort to make a run on the United States is getting closer and closer. And ladies and gentlemen, we're just about there. So we've got to take our heads out of the sand, and that's being kind, and get them where they belong, and that's lifting up our eyes and beholding what's going on around us. And again, it's amazing to me that we still don't get it. And will we ever get it? I hope so. I hope it's not too late. Margaret, here's what she says. She said, Steve, you did not mention whether the man's body was found to have a prick point from a needle or any problems with his body. That's because, Margaret, as conveniently happens with dead scientists, the autopsies are not allowed, and the medical examiners just rule death by whatever. So because there are no autopsies, I can't get the autopsy report. Just to let you know, in rare cases, I have tried to go behind the scenes to get autopsy reports, and guess what? I've been told, don't go there, Steve, and number two, there's nothing to find there, Steve. So point blank, without an autopsy, I can't find out if a chemical agent was used. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that haven't watched enough spy movies, there are ways there's a million ways to pretty much take out people, kill them, liquidate them, and make it look like an accident. You can paint stuff on doorknobs. The guys touch the doorknobs with DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide, a shellfish toxin, bingo, it goes into the body, kills these guys, and there's no finding out what killed them. So, for the record, no autopsies have been done on either of these two scientists, so therefore I cannot tell you of any prick points. Therefore, the second agent making this as a binary agent would be the water supply. After all, it's a good thing to use to blame on the terrorists. My problem is the ones who I think are the terrorists are those who swore an oath to protect the American people. And I would say, amen, amen, sister. It is amazing how the bad people always think they will be part of the system. A black widow, this is great, a black widow always eats its mate when she is done. Also, when we truly know when the terrorists outside of our nation do anything. These are days to be prayerful and to get ready to meet the Lord, thy God. And she says, Godspeed. Thank you very much, and God bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, again, it's tough to be able to give you any type of autopsy feedback when they don't allow autopsies. We're going to take a break. We come back, we'll continue on. You're listening to the Q-Files. I'm Steve Quayle. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Q-Files, and I'm privileged to have as a new sponsor Chris Schwartz of Lindstrom Financial Group. Now, Chris has been a listener to my program for a number of years, and based on his expertise and his knowledge of the markets and his ability to help you with refinancing your home, getting set to get out of harm's way, pulling equity out, rewriting your higher rate mortgages for your new and lower rate mortgages, I'd like to encourage you to call him because Chris is a very intelligent man, and he can help you with advice to not only get you out of harm's way, but to position you for some major events and changes as the home mortgage market begins to become more and more volatile. Remember my word convulsionomics, economics and convulsion? Well, the minute they start, meaning the powers that be start to mess with the mortgage markets, it's going to throw this country in a tailspin. Now, I want you to call Chris at 1-800-550-7990. 1-800-550-7990, and mention the Q-Files and receive your appraisal at no cost. Now, an appraisal can cost anywhere from $250 to $500, so that's 500 good reasons for you to pick up the phone and call Chris at 1-800-550-7990. And I talked to Chris about an hour ago, and I said, Chris, I want to be kept up on any changes in the mortgage market. I want to know what's going on so I can bring them to the listeners' attention. Now, I can tell you what I'm going to do, and I'm going to tell you this point blank. I've started running stuff on eBay. I am going to literally go into a liquidation phase of stuff that I have that I don't use. And believe me, when you've owned a lot of retail stores and you're a guitar player, you end up with a lot of stuff that you probably could turn to cash. And I'm going to put it into the silver for the reason that I'm going to talk to you about in the next part of the show. But for those of you that might want to get a little bit of money that out of your houses to be able to invest and take advantage of the biggest bull market in the world as it applies to silver, I would encourage you to call Chris. By the way, he is a precious metals guy. He understands them, and he's not your typical, what I would say, smiley face newspaper, the mortgage ads. In Bozeman, we must have 20 ads in the paper a night for smiley face mortgage brokers. Chris knows his stuff. Again, call him at 1-800-550-7990, and he's glad to try and get you freed up, get some cash freed up, lower your expenses, and in general, just help you out. And I got to share this. I'm so grateful that he decided to come on and, at his request, become a sponsor because he believes in what I'm doing on this show and believes in helping people get out of harm's way. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, Chris Schwartz, call him 1-800-550-7990. Now, I want to propose an interesting question to those of you out there that understand the metals market. If Japan has just announced that the Liberal Democratic Party is putting pressure on Tanigaki, the Treasury guy, to buy gold, what do you think China's going to do with that? I can tell you what China's going to do with that. China is coming in as the stalker. The stalker is someone that is buying up all the physical gold that they can get, and they're buying it up through dealers around the world using surrogates. I was told by one of my listeners who's been with me from the beginning, and this gentleman is a machinist, that even the slag steel, what they call, I guess they call it toke, that used to be going for $3 a ton is now going for $240 a ton, and that the prices of steel are just going through the roof. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to consider this thought because I'm going to make it really simple. We know that there is only X number of ounces, tons of gold available. We know that the big guys are going for the most because they've got the biggest bucks to go for the most. And they're going to trade their foreign currency reserves as quickly as they can and as surreptitiously or silently and cautiously as they can to make sure they get it. Right now, there's a $1.2 billion gold order that's out there floating around, and it's the Chinese. Now, I suggest to you that everybody in the world except the PDAs, that's the Poor Dumb Americans, know what, not personal desk assistant or whatever, but a PDA, Poor Dumb Americans, don't get the fact of the incredible amount of gold that's being acquired by the Chinese. With the Japanese Liberal Democratic Party putting pressure on, I can tell you this, Japan is nobody's fool when it comes to playing in the international markets. They will acquire as much gold as they can. Now do you get the picture? Everybody's going for it, and the United States said, oh, we're going to get rid of our barbarous relic as fast as we can get rid of it. And under the Clinton 8 years of, hi, I want to be in Beijing policies, you know, we basically have stripped ourselves of the gold. Now, somebody sent me an email saying, don't you think that would be a good reason to confiscate the gold? Let me tell you this, if the government's going to confiscate anything, they're going to confiscate it when it's worth a lot of money, not when it's worth a little money. The whole position that I've tried to present on 10 years on the radio is that your period to move and to have the courage to move, it both in acquiring the metals and in selling them. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand something. I don't believe that the issue of confiscation is the most important issue at this point. The most important issue is we know what the big guys are doing. We know that their table is spilling crumbs, and I just want to help you catch the crumbs, okay? And I'm not talking about the crumbs in Washington, D.C. I'm talking to you about the financial crumbs. Incidentally, I want you to know something. Today I was contacted by one of the biggest think tanks in Washington, D.C. I will not tell you who. And they wanted to know specifically issues that how high would a 10-kiloton a nuclear weapon, how high would the mushroom cloud go, winds aloft, temperature, and so I got immediately on my phone to Shane Connor, and Shane's a nuclear physicist, and by the way, I'll tell you what, There's nobody in this country that's probably done more for the average guy to understand the negative effects of nuclear weapons more than Shane. But anyway, I want to share this with you. When they start calling me and asking me how big the weapons are, this is a think tank, you guys. This is not, Bob and Pete. This is one of the biggest names in the world, then they're concerned. Does that maybe give you a signal? Now, I don't know if it's this week, next week, or 3 weeks, or 3 months, or next year. But I can tell you this, that the people in the know and the people, the power brokers, know exactly what's coming down. And to the degree that they want to know issues like how high up does a mushroom cloud go on a 10-kiloton weapon. By the way, depending on temperature, depending on winds aloft, it's 25 to 35,000 feet. Now, again, you've got to understand that the fallout, the word fallout comes from the debris that's carried up in the mushroom cloud, and as your primary detonation or your initial blast, that goes outward. And I asked, again, the nuclear physicist that works for Shane Connor, and he said you're looking at about a 1 to 2 mile blast radius for a 10-kiloton weapon. Now, again, depending on the country of origin and how dirty it is, when I say dirty, I'm not talking about conventional weapons. In any nuclear explosion, you do not get 100% fission or 100% fusion. But specific countries, and depending on the warheads, did certain things to their weapons designs to make them even more lethal. In other words, to allow the radiation to stay active longer. Radiation has a half-life. And so I discussed with the lady from the think tank, I said, you realize that Britain would, if you're talking about 200-mile-an-hour winds in the jet stream blowing from the west to the east, you're talking about being in Britain or over the British Isles in probably 10 hours or less. And sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, the jet stream can reach fantastic speeds of 300 and 400 miles an hour. So you take 400-mile-an-hour jet stream winds, and you're over in Britain in 5 hours with some incredible radioactivity. And this is why it's so important for you to call Shane and get the nuke alerts. And by the way, she had one, and she was talking, extolling its virtue. And I said, I know. You can call them at 830-672-8734 because you've got to understand this is serious. So, again, I want you to know I received a call. I told them what they wanted to know, and I think that should be a heads up for all of you guys. It's again, been a blessing to be a watchman because God makes it His business to make sure the watchmen get the message. And I got to tell you something. I'm so privileged that I don't have to live 120 years of ridicule like Noah, or 70 years like Jeremiah or Ezekiel or Isaiah. And I'm not a prophet. I'm just a watchman. And I make the difference, you guys. There is a big difference. But the point being is when anybody tells a nation, a group of people, a population base that you have absolutely infuriated heaven and taken all that was holy and precious and ground it in the dust of the earth, there comes a time when the Lord God of heaven does not just sit silent, nor is He idle. And I've made this statement. God judges nations in history and individuals in eternity. And the judgment of the nations, if you go to the book of Revelation, the whole world's going to watch what happens to us. Not a pleasant thought. I am not on the radio to make you be warm and fuzzy. I am on the radio to make you victors by the grace of God and not victims. Let me go to Ted Butler. The coming two-stage price explosion in silver. Ted Butler, the smartest guy in the world on silver. When I say that, absolutely, he's been telling everybody this day would come, what's going on in the silver market. And again, it's amazing that people don't pay attention to what's obvious before them. Let me read you what he has to say. The recent volatility in the price of silver, as well as the move to multi-year highs, has created questions by those trying to decide if this is a good time to buy, sell, or trade the silver market. Given the large percentage gains from the lows, has silver moved too far, too fast? Is it still a good buy? The answer to that is that at over $6, silver is a great buy. It was a better buy, of course, at $4 or $5, but today that's a moot point. We have to deal with the fact that silver is no longer below $5. Its price not too long ago, which is not to say we can't get that final sell-off in which the technical funds are flush from the long side on the COMEX and silver goes down. However, to my mind, we are not going lower than $5. That means the risk is still low, not as low as it was, but still low. Let's put $6 silver into perspective, he says. There are two general components to the silver equation. One is the basic supply and demand, and the other is the market structure. Supply and demand fundamentals are the most important for determining where silver will trade long-term, and long-term is a proper way to invest in silver. Since we are reaching price highs not seen since Warren Buffett celebrated purchase some 6 years ago, I'd like to talk about Buffett a bit. By most objective measures, Warren Buffett, is the world's most successful investor. His approach is super long-term, based primarily upon logic and common sense, and it is no surprise that he invested so heavily in silver. After all, since silver offers the best risk-reward situation of any investment, it would be strange if Mr. Buffett, the world's most successful investor, didn't own it. As an aside, I don't think that the recent rumors that Buffett is buying silver again are true. I hope I'm correct, as that would make the current rally even more real. One big investor buying silver, particularly leveraged futures, can be persuaded to liquidate by the authorities, as has happened in the past. It's much better for an army of small investors to overwhelm the manipulators. I had a question about the silver purchase last year. When you announced it, you said that the supply and demand fundamentals would be established at higher prices. What are the fundamentals? Well, Buffett, this is a question that he was asked. We have no inside information about great new uses for silver or anything of the sort. You can see from looking at the numbers that the aggregate demand, primarily from investor and fundamental type uses, is close to 800 million ounces per year, and there are 500 million or so ounces of silver being produced annually, although there will be more coming on in the next couple of years. Most of the silver is produced by a byproduct in the mining for copper, lead, or zinc. Since it's a byproduct, it's not very responsive to price changes. There's been a gap in recent years of perhaps 150 million ounces, which has been filled by inventory bullion above ground, which may have been a billion or two or more ounces a few years back. There's no question that the bullion inventory has been depleted significantly, which means that the present price for silver does not produce an equilibrium between supply as measured by newly mined silver plus reclaimed silver. What he's basically saying, everyone, is that there's more demand for the silver than there is supply. When have you ever heard that before? Now, this is what I'm trying to get across. A lot of people write to me, send me emails saying, look, we can't afford $400 gold. No, but you can't afford ounces of silver, because what Warren Buffett and others recognize is that silver is in shorter supply than gold. Somebody said, you believe silver could exceed the price of gold? And my answer is absolutely. I didn't until I started looking at the logic. The logic is it takes at least 2 to 4 years to bring on a new mine, and upwards of 1 to 2 years to bring on an existing mine that has been shut down. You've got to pump the water out. You've got to go in and shore up the timbers, you have to comply with the Mine Safety Act, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of stuff you've got to do. And the issue that you've got to understand is that the nations out there that are buying gold are also buying silver. India is one of the largest silver purchasers in the world. Do you know how many people are in India right now? Correct me if I'm wrong, everyone, but I think it's 1.2 billion. Do you realize that if everybody in India was told to buy 1 ounce of silver, and for everybody that would buy 1 ounce, there's always those guys that will buy 1,000, 2,000 ounces. So what I'm doing, and I just had one of my guys that works for me, John, do, is I'm going to post everything on eBay or run ads in the paper to get rid of all my stuff. I got too much stuff. And I'm going to put it into silver, and I don't care if it's 6, I don't care if it's 7, I don't care if it's $8 an ounce. The reason being, you guys, is that based on what Ted Butler and others are saying, you know, most people never believed that palladium could go from $45 an ounce to $1,080 an ounce. What's that, 25 times? If silver were to go to 25 times where it is right now, and the fundamentals of silver are even worse than palladium, meaning it has to go even much higher, you're talking about silver being in the area of anywhere, from $250 to $400 an ounce. Now, a lot of people yell at me and scream at me, but look, when I told people to go into platinum, it was at $380. When I told people to go into gold, and I still tell them to go into gold, it was at $285. When I told people to go into palladium, back when it was available, when I was selling palladium, even before it went to $1,080, in those days it was as low as $150. And again, people said, well, I wish I would have listened to you then. Well, listen, I wish I would have listened to me then too. But I think you've got to understand this. And as Shane Connor posted on Time Bomb 2000, just look for his metal posting on Time Bomb 2000 about a dentist, I believe in Houston, And this guy in Houston was buying a 100-ounce bar every week. Now, obviously, not everyone can afford $500 a week, but you could put it into a 10-ounce bar or whatever. And this guy basically has somewhere around 30,000 ounces. Do your math. What's 30,000 times 100? That's $3 million. But even take it down to the little guys. What if a guy could amass even $1,000 worth of silver at $6? 150 ounces times $100 is $15,000. What I'm looking for, and let me share this and be just brutally honest. I'm looking for a way that everybody, no matter how much they're in debt, no matter how difficult times are, that this is going to give them their money, their running money, their purchasing money to get their emergency supplies and stuff. And by the way, I'm not in the business, so that's not a pitch. The point is people need to have a fresh start, and I'm hoping that silver will become a fresh start. And look, God created the gold and the silver. Men created Federal Reserve notes and paper money, and also created toilet paper. The only difference is that the money's got prettier pictures than the toilet paper, although you can get some pretty cool toilet paper. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very unique opportunity. Forgive me, Don. We have a unique opportunity, and I mean unparalleled. You can't even compare it to the 1979-1980. It is a truly once-in-a-century opportunity to acquire this stuff in a reasonable manner, in reasonable amounts, while there still is available. What happens when everybody panics in the gold market? Well, the answer to that is that when there's no gold, they go into the silver, they go into the platinum, they go into the palladium. So again, forget what the price is on a day-to-day basis and start looking at the big picture. The big picture, if junk stuff that you make steel out of, carbon steel, and again, I'm not a metallurgist, so I don't know what toke is, except it was explained to me that it's a form of like steel slag. Understand, a year ago it was $3 a ton, now it's $240 a ton. If you look at all of the metals, whether you're dealing with, as the British say, aluminium, or aluminum, or you're dealing with any of the steels and you're dealing with copper, everything is going wild. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's your indication that you've got to get into something that's real. It's amazing to me that people still don't understand that if their money would buy $100,000 last year at this time, if it were in your mattress, stupid place to keep it, but if it were, it'd be worth $70,000. Next year it's probably going to be worth $40,000. So in 2 years, your money will have been halved. Does that sound like an amazing thing to you? It's a really time that you sit up and take notice. And I think that it's important that you do take notice and get this. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, if you'd like, give me a call tomorrow at 1-800-424-7870. And I want to read one of my, let's see here, gold shares. This is from Robert. He said, "Hi, Steve. The stupid people are dumping their gold shares for short-term profits and fiat dollars just make me want to pull my hair out." Well, Robert, like me, you probably got to grow some more because there isn't that much left to pull out. One day they're going to wake up and see gold up $50 and the shares that they sold so far out of sight that they will never be able to buy them back at the prices they sold them for. I emailed you a while back about Nova Gold, NG. They just got listed on the American Stock Exchange about 2 months ago. A few people seem to know about this company. I did a little math you might find interesting. They have only 52.5 million shares outstanding and 14.4 million ounces of gold, mostly in Alaska. They have 1/3 of gold in the ground per share. I bought 1,100 shares about 8 weeks ago. At today's price of gold, with them having 1/3 ounce per share, the value of my shares is $152,203. Yet the share price is only a little over $5. The share price should be about $138 per share, according to the gold price. Can you say undervalued? The poor dumb sheep will wake up someday. Thank you, Robert, for that illustration. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what he's simply saying is what I said last night. He's giving an actual physical Nova Gold, by the way, for those of you that are stock market people, is NG, and go talk to your brokers. But the point is that gold valuations are totally different than earnings from a company. What good does it do to be XYZ, the biggest toilet paper manufacturer? Let's not use that. Let's use something. Let's use Kraft Foods, one of the biggest manufacturers of processed foods in the world. And guess what? They're losing money. Okay, so what good does it do that if you want to buy a stock of a company that's laying off 6,000 people to, quote, cut costs, and they can't make a profit now? Do you think they can make a profit as things get worse? I don't. But when you're dealing with gold and silver mining companies, their value is rated on what they have in reserves in the ground. So for those of you that are in that, you might consider Robert's illustration and be a heads up. And it's important. It's very important. It's going to position you for the times ahead, and I think it will help you to understand the times we live in. Here's a good article, or a good question from Brian. Can you have Holly put up the article you read about the Japanese minister? Yeah, she's been out of town, so I don't know if she's back yet, but it will be up in the next 24 hours. Also, what do you think is more prudent to buy, single-ounce pieces of silver or 100-ounce Johnson Matthey bars? You said, great show, and thank you for all your knowledge. Times, they are a change. And by the way, I've got my new Birds CD, and I'm going to be sending it to Steve Melching and have him play Turn, 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 because there is a time and season for everything. By the way, how many of you love the Birds? I got to tell you something. Cranking up 8 miles high, going down the icy roads of Bozeman, put me into another time and another place where I didn't have to think of biological weapons, neutron bombs, and all that other stuff. If you haven't revisited the Birds, please do. By the way, Roger McGuinn is a fabulous 12-string guitarist, and for the record, he is a fabulous Christian. So, it's something that you might want to look at. Let's go here. Captain Harlock says, let's see. Nope. Okay. Here's a good question. Steve, and this is from Tom, I think you should do a show about where we can sell some of our gold and silver coins and holdings when the time comes to do so without being ripped off big time. The first half hour of the show could be where we can sell, get these items, the second half where we can sell. Something to think about. I will address that because it's a critical issue. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of time as usual. I need 2 hours. But I will, those of you who sent me emails on metals or call me, 1-800-424-7870, I'll be emailing you back and calling you back. Good night, everyone. God bless you.